Hey, how we doing? We're back in action. I got a song I'm actually going to be stem mastering today, and I figured I'd do a live stream with y'all. So it's 5 o'clock over here in Hollywood, and I have this kind of new wave vibe, and I got the stems for it, and I'm going to be in Logic Pro, which I don't typically master in Logic Pro, but I figure a lot of people on this channel and that follow me, my mailing list, all that, a lot of Logic Pro users, right? And I love Logic Pro. I don't think that you need any specific DAW to mix, master, produce in. There's just certain things that certain DAWs do better or differently than others, okay? So we're going to get into all that stuff. I'm going to talk about my chain, my mastering chain. I'm going to talk about why I don't go out of the box with mastering. And even with mixing, I don't go out of the box, which means I don't use any analog at all. And I'll tell you exactly why. I'll show you why. You know, we'll get into all that. And mainly I want to do a live here because I want to, answer your questions and make sure you guys really understand what mastering and stem mastering is and mixing is and what the differences are, because I find that a lot of people are very confused about what mixing is and what mastering is and what's the difference between the two. It's a very confused subject, I think, especially in modern music when you have everybody with a laptop is now a mixing engineer or a mastering engineer or a producer or, you know what I mean, etc. So we're going to get into all that stuff, and yeah, I'll answer your questions. Just please just drop them in the chat. Let me know if you're here right now. I want to say what's up. It is Saturday. I got an event to go to, so we're going to spend maybe an hour on this live, and I hope you guys get a lot out of it. And if you do, all I ask of you is please share the show, share the channel, subscribe to the channel, show some love, throw a thumbs up, like all that good stuff. Just helps us reach more people. Music production, mixing, mastering is a very niche thing. Okay. Very, very few people in the world are doing it for a living. Believe it or not, I'd say maybe less than 1% of the world is making a living off of music alone. Okay. So, this is not something that I take lightly, and I do need your help. Okay. So I'm asking for your help. I'm going to help you. You help me, right? It's a nice little trade. All right. So drop any questions you got while I go through this in the comments. I'm always here to help you guys. I'm not asking for your money. I'm not asking for anything from you. Okay. So I do these streams. I pull money out of my pocket to do these streams and to do the lives and all that stuff, all the content. So just play your part. All right, motherfuckers. What's up, Brian? How you doing, bro? Always good to see the same people showing up. Obviously, you guys are going to be the ones that are going to be getting the most out of this. All right, so here we are. We're in Logic Pro. I want to show you kind of how I set up a session for mastering. It's very, very simple, very basic. All right, and this is a little different because we're stem mastering in this session. So as you can see, we got the colorful little rainbow going on. So let's talk about coloring scheme first, because here's my coloring scheme. Drums are always going to be kind of a brown color, bass always yellow. Vocals are always hot pink because I want them to be like, that's the vocals. Very important. Guitars are always red, and all synths are going to be this blue, like very blue color. I do this in all DAWs, so I can visually go red guitars, hot pink vocals, brown drums. Like, you have to train yourself to do things over and over and over and have systematic approaches to what you do with production, songwriting, mixing, mastering, anything creative, so you can be creative. That's why we try to organize, so we can be creative. Okay, that's very, very important. So my coloring scheme is my way of going bam, right? I know exactly what's going on. Yo, what's up? First time watching live. All right, that's what's up. It's good to see you. How do you say your name, man? Siabanga? Siabanga? I don't know. That's dope name. I wish my name was cool like that. I'm like Bradley, Brad. Not as cool. All right, so always I'm going to set up my session like that, okay? And the cool thing is when you drop in stems in Logic, it's going to give you the icons. As long as the stems have the name of the instrument in them, right? So like if it says Vox or vocal, it will actually give you an icon of a microphone. And I'll show you this because it's actually pretty cool. So I'm going to drag these stems in again, right? I'm just dragging them in. And check this out. Create new tracks. And bam. I drag those in. You got a bass guitar. You got a acoustic guitar. You got a piano, synth, right? Like it'll actually like give you the icons automatically. I think that's pretty cool. And I think DAWs are going to do that more and more as they get these AI tools involved in them. I'm looking out for the newest, latest Logic update, which will be, I'm hoping will come soon, right? We don't know, but it'll be I think it'll be a pretty big update because we're at like 10.79 right now. So 10.8 or 11 is going to be really dope. So I love Logic Pro. How many Logic Pros users do we have in here right now? Yeah, dude. Old school broccoli. I'm broccoli. Hey, what's up, Philippe? How you doing, man? See, I'm on your time zone over here, bro. All right. Okay, so Logic Pro users. Who do we got in here that uses Logic? I'm sure a lot of people, right? But anyway, so that's what I'm gonna do. The first thing I'm gonna do, I'm always gonna have everything laid out how I like it laid out. Now, here's another thing. I always put the drums up top. Now, this is more like a mixing workflow, but you know, we're stem mastering, so it's a bit of mixing. The difference between mixing and mastering is going to be vast, okay? It's very, very different. All right, mastering is really like the final bit of processing to a 2-track to where it's going to be distributed. Okay, so you could be mastering for vinyl records. You could be mastering for streaming services like Spotify, Apple Music, etc. You could be mastering for CDs if you're still using CDs. You can master for cassette tapes. So that's what mastering really is. Nowadays, I would say you're mastering 99% of the time for streaming services. Okay, so we're trying to make sure this song or the record plays really well on streaming services. Okay, so that's very, very important. I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of that. If you guys want to go, if you want to pick up my mixing or my mastering masterclass, that breaks down very much more detail of mastering and what it is. Now, mixing, I mean, that's a whole different beast, you know? We're like EQing, compressing, getting things to like work together. We're breathing life to a song. We're doing a bunch of automation so the song lives and breathes and moves and morphs and is a performance. Highly competitive performance of 2023 is way different than mixing a record in 1993, right? Even 2003 standards are shit compared to 2023. So we're getting loud and proud, but we want transients. We want the vocal where it's never getting clogged. You know, it's very, very different. Mixing is very different than mastering. To give you an example, like I could mix a song with 150 stems. That could take me like 3 days to mix in different sittings, right? So I might sit down and work for 2 hours, take a break, do another 2 hours on it, and then come back the next day and do another 2 hours. And then the final day, I might do the final master or, you know, give my ears a rest or whatever. But depending on how big the session is and the style of music, like pop records can take a long time to mix. And mixing nowadays has become so integral with the music and the records and the imprint you're putting on the record that I think it's a part of the production nowadays. If you get a good mixing engineer, they know how to make your record fucking jump out of the speakers and demand attention. And it's just a different thing, man. You can produce all you want, think you got a record all done, and then a mixing engineer comes in and they literally can take your record from a 75% to a 98%, you know? So that's what mixing really is. And a lot of the times we mix through a stereo bus and a mastering chain, you know? That's what we do. It's competitive. You have to send people your mix bounces as if like that could be put out right now. Okay. So that's very, very important. All right. FL Studio. All right. FL Studio is going to be, that's a tough one to mix and master in, but really fun to produce in for sure. Okay. Logic. We got, Drew Hawks. What's up, baby? How'd you like that mix? Make that shit bump. I went so big on the low end, bro. Philippe. All right. FL Studio since 2013. All right. Well, I've used FL. I like FL. I think it's really creative. Yo, Scott, what's up, man? All right, good to see y'all. I got this like little slider here. What is this? Okay, that's interesting. Sorry, I'm just playing with the little features here. Okay, so anyway, we're stem mastering. So stem mastering, and you know, it's funny because I made a TikTok the other day about Bounce Butler, this program that bounces stems or trackouts from your session for you, and it automates that process. And I got so many just fucking like newbies and like TikTok, you know, people like correcting me, you know, like, those aren't stems. Stems would be when you combine things, and you know, and I'm like, oh, please tell me what a stem is. Tell me what a trackout is. So if you guys want like the textbook definition of what a stem is when you combine instruments, okay? So like you have 2-3 guitars, you combine that and you say that's the guitar stem. Drums, you got snare, kick drum, hi-hat, etc. You combine that and you got the drum stem, okay? That's all the drums. You could say like acoustic drums and then the electronic drum stem. Trackouts are going to be the individual elements. The snare, kick, you know, you're going to get every single track tracked out. All right. But here's the thing. In a lot of different circles and communities of professionalism in music, we say stems and we mean just stems. We mean like trackouts. We mean as much as you want to stem something out, right? So for example, in the music for TV shows and for films and things like that, they'll tell you how wide they want the stems, right? So they want, from the composer has all their trackouts, right? All their individual violins, cellos, whatever, right? And the stage would be like, the stage meaning the final mixer. The mixer is that's mixing the dialogue with the music, with the sound effects, all that stuff, and they're mixing everything, usually on a console, an Avid console, you know, whatever, in a room that is pretty much a theater. Okay, and it's usually going to be an Atmos surround, you know, 5.1 is typical. So what they want with stems, they'll tell you, right? They'll say, we want stems as wide as possible. Now, that could mean trackouts. Okay, so it's like interchangeable. That means like, hey, I'm going to do the violin, the viola, you know, I'm going to do everything separate. That's like as wide as possible. Okay, so stems and trackouts interchangeable depending on what circles you're talking to. Okay, like if you're just talking to like beat makers and shit and they're like sending stems, that's way different. You would say trackouts in that community, right? That means I want the kick drum, the snare, I want everything tracked out. Simply individual elements of everything. Okay, in this case, we're stem mastering, which means we have all the drums on one stem, on one bounce. We have all the bass on one stem. Now you could call this bass a trackout because it's just a bass, but we're stem mastering. You get what I'm saying? It's confusing to a lot of people and they like to correct you online because they're all so professional, right? They haven't done shit. That's the problem, but they love to argue online. But I'm telling you right now, this is how it is for real. Like if I ask for stems from someone, a lot of the times they're not going to go, now what would you like stems of? They're going to go, okay, they track it out for me. Make sense? All right, cool. Let's get that out of the way. Shit was bugging me. People like just dropping comments. I'm like, dude, go do something. All right, so here we go. So drums. First thing is we're going to color everything. We're going to do drums. We're going to do bass because that's usually the foundation. Drums, bass. That's what I want to start with. So I always start with my mix. I start with the drums and then I pop in the bass and then I pop in the vocals and then I pop in everything around that stuff because those are the foundation of the song for most songs. Okay, not all songs. So that's how I do it. I do it in order of how I mix things in. Okay. And then in my mastering session, I always want to have the reference bounce up top. Okay. So the reference bounce is going to be the song. So let's listen to the reference bounce from the client. Now this is kind of a new wave punk idea. So yeah, just tap in.
Sorry, Father, I can't confess. Harder the collar when I watch her undress. She likes it dirty and she comes with toys. Don't take it out on your altar boys. Ready?
All right, so it's pretty much just a mess of noise to me right now, you know? What I hear in it is a lot of just built up frequencies, and it should be hardcore, right? But it feels very like just a lot of noise. I don't want to lose the vocals when he's going low and stuff. So I want to make sure the vocals are always on top and they have their circle, their cutout basically, right? I'm not mixing this record, but I am definitely, doing what I have to do to make it work. Which, you get clients that are like, yo, I just need an extra 5-10% on the master. And then you get clients that are like, yo, I need you to like, fucking stem master my shit and do your magic. You know what I mean? Which, it's more work. It's more work to do stem mastering for sure. Okay. So what we're going to start with is we're going to start by just listening to the stems completely like at unity. That's what I want to do. I want to see what the balance is. All right, so right away we can see the vocal stem is very low. So let's use the gain function and let's gain it up like 10 dB. Like literally, let's jack it up so that it's the same, like you can see the waveform. That's very important that you start to read waveforms. And you can see that it starts to compete. You can see the bass is pretty jacked up, and you can see the drums are pretty jacked up, but the vocals were like really low. I'm gonna undo it. Look at that vocal. Like, that's crazy. All right. So we got to gain it up, and there's nothing wrong with adding gain, you guys. You can even normalize files if you want to. That's an important part of what we're doing here. Okay. So now we have this. Let's play this now. Okay, cool. So now that feels much more balanced. The bass still feels really loud, right? So I'm just going to tuck this back just a little bit. And now I'm just going to kind of feel this out, and I'm going to play it, and I'm going to turn my volume up, right? Because I'm not turning anything up on the master yet. Like all my plugins that I have on the master bus, this is like a templated, like this is what I usually would master with on this style of record, okay? So we might change some of this stuff out, but this is what I got, and I'll go through that stuff. But for now, what we want to do is we want to make sure that the levels are all good and that we're giving ourselves some headroom right here on the master, okay? So what we can do there is we could pop on a plugin that will give us some sort of metering, right? So you could use Isotope, you could use Waves, you could use, one of my favorites is going to be the Plugin Alliance has, here I'll find it. It's hard to like talk and look for stuff. You know what I mean? So it's the SPL Hawkeye, and the Hawkeye for me just has the most like, it just has all the information I need, right? So in the Hawkeye, what I love about this is that it has this like frequency thing down here, but then you got your meters here, and then you have your sort of LUFs or LUFs readings here. And then you have your DC offsets and pattern stuff. And then you have your correlation, which is your phase correlation stuff. Okay, so this is a great tool. I just absolutely love this. And what I can do here is I can start to watch and listen and see where things are hitting without any plugins on. Right, so very simple. We have like about 2 dB, 2.5 dB of headroom right here, okay? So what I want to do is make just a little bit more headroom happen, because mastering is really about gain staging. Very, very important that you understand gain staging. Study it. Study it every day until it like clicks for you. You're like, oh, I get it now. All right, so let's start where there's like just a lot going on. So it looks like here there's like a shit ton of information hitting. Yeah, super edgy and gnarly. It's like new wave punk. It's about some intense shit. It's kind of dark. But yeah, you know, music should make you feel something. I think that's the powerful part about any song, right? I don't want to hear people saying a bunch of cliche bullshit. Like trap is the worst sometimes. You know, you got these guys that don't live anything that they're saying, and it's like, what are you saying, bro? Like, you don't sell drugs, you don't do any of this stuff. Like, you're acting like you do all this stuff. Nobody believes you. Right? So I think like it's important to make authentic music to you. All right, and that's my job, is to make sure that that authenticity comes through in, you know, the finality of the record. Like really what we are as mixing or mastering engineers, we are like facilitators of the feel of everything. Like people don't know how a record's supposed to feel until it's mixed and mastered. And once it's mixed and mastered, you go like, oh, that feels big, or that feels like important, or that feels sad as fuck. You know, all sorts of stuff that you can bring out in the mix. But we're really just stem mastering here. Okay, so I'm going to start balancing, and I'm going to be taking these faders down, because these faders are going to feed the master, okay? So these right here. So any of these faders. So I can hit X to go to my mixer, and if I pull any of these faders down, that's all going to, you know, hit this master fader and show me my final gain, right? So I can look at this to really see a great reading out of that. But if I want, I can also just look at the master here. You know what I mean? Like you could see negative 0.7. That's going to be a peak level. Okay. Very important that you understand the peak level. That's going to be like a snare drum hitting. You know what I mean? So it's a very small time. So you don't really want to worry too much about the peak, but it's kind of like, you want to worry about the difference between the peak and the RMS. So where is everything kind of standing and hitting? And then where are things peaking, right? So that difference is the crest factor. And how to make a record really loud is to take the crest factor and make it as small as possible. But you risk, when you don't know what you're doing and you're not like a professional and you're not working in an environment that you really understand, you risk squashing your dynamics, you risk pumping and artifacts from limiters, from processing, from all sorts of stuff. You can run into a lot of problems trying to get your record really loud. So what we try to do is perceive loudness instead. So we go for like harmonics, distortion, parallel compression. We do some soft clipping or hard clipping, right? To make sure that we can maybe trim down the peaks a little bit, things like that. But we don't want to lose transients. Transients are life in a record. Okay, so now I'm just going to kind of balance this in.
What evidence can you provide that church is known for its lies? Logic, suspension, overdrive. All the pedals they willfully hide. What evasion, overdrive. All the pedals they willfully hide.
Okay, so big part of the vocal right away is, and because I have the stems, I can do this. I'm going to pop an EQ on it and make sure that I don't have any shit down here. You could hear explosives, you could hear some low end stuff that's building up that's just not going to serve that part of the record very well. It's going to get in the way. It's going to conflict. We call this masking, right? When you have frequencies that are building up. So you have the kick drum and the drums are going to have those frequencies. And then the bass is going to have that frequency. And then the vocals are going to have that frequency. It's right? And they just start stacking on each other and compounding. And then you run into the issue of gain staging. Because if you're pushing a shit ton of 100 hertz into your limiter, your final master limiter, it's just going to choke down on 100 hertz as much as possible, because that's all it's hearing and seeing, right? Which in turn, if it's taking down when it hits too much 100 hertz, then you get this like 2K starts popping out more, right? There's a lot of things that might happen because of that. So we want to balance things out. And I'm just going to EQ this a little bit.
Logic, suspension, overdrive. All the pedals they willfully hide. Logic, suspension, overdrive. All the pedals they willfully hide. Logic, suspension, overdrive. All the pedals they willfully hide. Logic, suspension, overdrive. All the pedals they willfully hide. Logic, suspension, overdrive. All the pedals they willfully hide. All the pedos they willfully hide.
Okay, see? So now we got rid of the plosive. We got rid of a bunch of bullshit at the bottom there before we hit the master bus, which is going to just clear up the vocal. There's nothing down there for the vocal. Nothing. It's just a bunch of mess.
Logic, suspension, overdrive. All the pedos they willfully hide.
Already much more clear. Vocal is much more pocketed in the middle. It's not getting in the way. It's not ducking anything else. Just a little bit of EQ. That's all we're doing, okay? Now, you can use free EQs to do that. You could use built-in Logic EQs to do that. Use whatever you want. You don't need Pro Q3. You don't need to go spend $200-$300 on a plugin, okay? I'm trying to do mastering grade stuff, so I obviously, like, I have invested a lot in what I do, okay? But that doesn't mean you have to. Same thing with the bass. Let's like listen to this bass. Let's really start to clean up the stems.
All the pedos they willfully hide. Overdrive. All the pedos they willfully hide. Logic, suspension, over.
Okay, just getting rid of a little bit of imbalance in that bass. Is just really honking really hard. And I don't think that that's the tone we really want there. Okay, so now let's just pop in the drums and the bass, and let's listen to the drums. All right, so those sound really good together. I just want to balance that bass a little bit more. And another thing I might want to do on the bass is just give it some compression, right? Just to really hold it together. Now that can be very, very simple. I'm not talking about a lot of compression. I'm talking about really just making sure that the note never disappears. So it's just going, right? It's just staying. To do this, I'm just going to use like an R comp. I think R comp is amazing for this sort of thing. So let's go to waves here and R compy. The R compressor is absolutely one of my favorite compressors of all time. And the way I would set this is I would go like 4-to-1 or so, right? So we're getting almost like a limiting effect. It's in between compression and limiting when you're 4-to-1. All right. And then my attack, I'm going to go maybe 70, 80, somewhere around there. Right? And then release, I'm going to release really fast, maybe like 5 to 10 milliseconds. On the on this, I want to do ARC. So ARC is automatic release if you want to, or you can do manual and you could change it here. So I'm going to leave it on manual because remember, I changed it here, right? So I'm going to do that. If you want, you could do auto. I like that. Auto release control, awesome. Works really well. I like opto on this. It just sounds better to my ears. And smooth or warm, but I'm going to go with smooth. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we're just going to watch it just kind of tickle it a little bit. And that's going to be like, I don't know, 1 to 2 dB. It just depends. Let's check it out. Right? Just helps it helps that meat kind of push forward and stay where it's at. That's really, really important for bass, for me. I love a bass to stay. I do not want it to go. I just want it to fucking hold the foundation down. Same thing, drums. Like, let's go in and let's just clean up a little bit. I'm just taking care of the bottom. I think the drums sound great. The only other thing I might want to do with the drums is just give them a little bit more of an edge, meaning like maybe some like distortion, maybe some harmonics. But I'm going to kind of get that, I think, mainly from my master bus. Okay, and that's going to help me with the glue and everything. Now, let's pop in drums, bass, and vocals and just hear these all together.
Logic, suspension, overdrive. All the pedals, they willfully hide.
So that's working really well for me. I can see how dynamic the vocal is though, and I would probably want to go through and compress it a little bit more. But again, I'm not mixing this record. I don't want to overdo any of that. Like, I'm really mastering here. So I'm really just trying to go for the overall vibe here. Okay, I'm not going to pop in guitars or synths, but I am going to turn on my first processor, which is going to be my UAD, and I'm just going to set the gain stage here. On the input, I usually find that you have one, you have two, right? So this is the second little notch here on the input. I find that if you go first notch here, I mean, because really this is like 12 o'clock, right? So this first notch here is really where I usually will set the input. And that gives me a nice little glue, distortion, you know, the tubes get pushed a little bit. And then the output, I'm just going to, I'm going to click this and make it 12 o'clock for now. I don't need to worry about the output. Okay, this needle may not barely even tickle move, right? But the biggest things I want to set is obviously the threshold. I want to set my attack pretty slow. I think this is good right here where it's at, because you're going to let through the transient still. And mix at 100%, and the recovery, I usually go pretty fast on it, but this is kind of in between, right? So recovery meaning, you know, it's like your release time, right, on the Manly. Variable Mu is just amazing. It's like one of my favorite plugins of all time. So just popping this on.
Logic, suspension, overdrive. All the pedals, they willfully hide. Logic, suspension, overdrive. All the pedals, they willfully hide. Logic, suspension, overdrive. All the pedals, they willfully hide. Logic, suspension.
All right, you're going to get a lot of gain out of that, right? Like this, it's important to understand which plugins you want gain from and which plugins you want limiting from or gain reduction from, right? It's things like that. So now I'm not going to turn on each plugin one at a time. I'm going to turn all plugins on, because the way that I look at this, these plugins, which I have on here, are the Manly, the UAD, the Vertigo, the Oxford Inflator, Ozone 10, Dynamic EQing, Soothe 2, Master Plan. The way I look at these is like a console in front of me. I don't look at these as like, oh, I'm going to move this one, and then I'm going to put that one on to move that one, and then I'm going to put that one on. It's not a serial chain. They all work together, right? It's just the way I work. It's the way a lot of mastering engineers work, I think. A lot of mixers work this way as well, especially if you're working off a console. What do you got here? Question. Hey, Bradley, how do you distinguish between cutting or dynamic processing on the, what are you normally listening for? Yeah, great question. So with dynamic EQing, I'm normally listening for, is there like a one note thing, right? So like, I'm not annoyed by the frequency, but I am when there's like one note that hits. So it's like, you got like, like that note. So everything else sounds great. And then you go, you get that one note. I want to dynamically EQ that down. But I don't want to take that frequency out of all of everything, because if I take that frequency out, if I dip it, if I cut it, then I'm taking harmonics out of other notes that are working really well. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, so now we're going to look at this as a console. The only thing I'm not going to fuck with, or I'm going to take kind of down, is the master plan. This is doing a lot on limiting and shit. So that's 5 dB. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start this out with maybe like a dB and a half or so. So that's like your gain. Also, don't need EQ on this yet. I'm going to basically reset my final processor in the chain, which is like my final limiting. Okay. Like for example, like this clean, I know I'm going to use this. I know I'm going to use this because this is like, this song has so much buildup in the low mids. So I'll probably just take this down and like leave it on there. Another thing you can do is you have this smooth circuit, which is really awesome. It's kind of like soothe, you know, and you can basically smooth out some frequencies on the top. Okay. And then this widen is really dope. And then this calm, I'm sorry, is the soothe 2 thing. And you can do 2x on the calm. That means it's going to take twice as many frequencies and work on them. Okay, so I'm not going to turn any of that on yet until I listen. There's also this tape algorithm where you can turn on tape and you can blend in, tape, warm tape, which basically rolls off the top for the most part. It'll make your low end sound a lot more full. And then I usually take this, see how it's at negative 0.1? I like to take it and give myself like a little bit more room. And I do this for the algorithm, like for Spotify and stuff. So like I might go like negative 1.8, negative 2 on the dBs, on the outputs, okay? That just gives me a little extra room because when you go to Spotify or Apple Music, you're going to basically dither the sound. So I'm gonna bounce this high quality FLAC version that's a WAV file, 44.1, 24-bit, maybe it's 48, 96, whatever, right? But I'm gonna give them like this full everything, all the information. And then you're going to upload it to DistroKid, CD Baby, etc. And then that's going to shoot it out. And then it's going to stream like some crazy dithered down, 192 kilobits per second. It's just going to fucking truncate the signal. So when you truncate the signal and you've made this really loud master and it's amazing and everything sounds awesome, but then you truncate it because now it's streaming on Spotify, you can have overs, you can have aliasing, you can have all sorts of crazy shit that happens. Like you could have weird crackles and, smearing of images and all that stuff. Another reason I don't go out of the box, very, very important, you guys. When you go out of the box, for example, I'm going to, let's say, have in my mastering chain a mastering compressor, a Manley variable mu hardware unit. That would be an absolute waste of your money. If you ever thought about doing that, the first thing you would want to purchase as an engineer, to even do that, to even think about going outside of the box, because remember, we have to do this. We have to convert out, right? So you go digital to analog, right? You go to the box. And then you come back from the box and you print back in analog to digital. Okay, so you're doing a D to A to D conversion on all of that and going through more circuitry. And if you're using like an Apollo or a Universal Audio, like something basic, especially a Focusrite, fuck off with that, right? But if you have like some bullshit like converters, you're basically just doing your shit more harm. So, I'm going to go through this outboard piece of gear, it's going to make my shit sound better. No, it's not. It's literally going to make your shit sound worse. So if you're going to have outboard gear, you better have great conversion, great clocking. That's very, very important. Like you probably want to invest like $5,000 to $10,000 just in converters, right? And clocking. So like Symphony, like Apogee Symphony is great for converters. And then you got clocks, like you can do like a Lavery Gold, but there's no reason to go out of the box unless you have great conversion, because you're losing quality and you're degrading the signal like fucking crazy. And then you're going into an outboard piece of gear like, oh, this is going to add the sauce. No, it's not. You're going to fuck your whole thing up. It's all going to sound like shit. So now the plugins are going to be way better in the box. Keep it in the box because at least you're not converting anything. And these plugins are 64-bit plugins. They have crazy amounts of headroom and all that. So that's why I do in the box. That's why Jason Joshua's all in the box now. He doesn't even fucking, like a lot of his projects, he doesn't even take it outboard. No console, nothing. Right? So it's very, very important that you understand that. And I think he probably does it a lot for like recall issues and how many mixes he's doing in a day. But a lot of mastering engineers even, man, they're using a lot more plugins now because they don't want to, mastering engineers, you're just going to have good conversion and good speakers, right? It's very, very important. Clocking itself is just like a nice atomic clock is worth its weight in gold. And then also like certain converters don't want to use their internal clock. They don't sound as good as if you take the converter and you clock it to an external clock. Okay, so there's a lot of things in mastering that you probably don't even think about. Like hundreds of thousands of dollars invested in this stuff. Like my speakers alone, the Dutch and Dutch 8Cs, these are the white on white ones. easily, these were like $17,000 with taxes and everything. So just for the speakers, like let's not talk about the room and the acoustics and, you know, all that. The plug-in chain I have right here is easily like over $1,000 in plugins by itself. So, you know, don't go down this well where you're like, oh, I'm going to buy all this stuff and I'm going to get dope. Like, no, just train your ears with what you have. Like, get as good as you possibly can with what you have. All right. I hope that all makes sense. Secure. Yeah, don't do it. Don't fucking do it. Especially if you got some bullshit. Oh man, I'm using a Motu interface. Like, nah, don't go out of the box. There's absolutely no reason to go out of the box. Unless you got, like I said, unless you got great conversion. If you got great converters and you got some great outboard gear, go out of the box. Do it. It'll be fun. There's certain things that analog gear, outboard gear, does in a mix that you just cannot get with a plugin. I don't care what anyone says. But that's after you've spent 10, 20 grand just on clocking and conversion. I'm telling you. Is there a reason this is getting done in Logic versus Pro Tools? No, not really. I just figured a lot of people on this channel use Logic, so... But this is all the same, man. Like, you could use any DAW to do anything. It does not matter, okay? So let's get back to it, okay? So master plan, last in the chain. Sooth 2. I don't even think I need this yet, but this is less mud on the master. So certain things I'm just going to turn off for now, right? Ozone. Don't need this yet because this is a dynamic EQ, okay? So this is like, I'm going to find frequencies that I can save some headroom on, that I can gain stage better. Oxford Inflator. I already know innately what I want to hear, and I know that this is pretty good. I might want to blend the effect in, so I might start at like 35% or something and blend it in. So I'm going to leave that there. Okay, this vertigo may or may not be needed, but it always adds three-dimensional harmonics and saturation. It makes it wider, makes it deeper on everything. It's a beautiful, beautiful plugin, and the hardware unit is even better. It's like $7,500, $8,000, something like that for the hardware unit. Again, these are like professional tools, okay, for professionals. If you don't even know how to hear things, you're using some like, you know, you have like a Focusrite Scarlett with some HS5s. You don't need any of this, okay? You just don't. Hire a mastering engineer. Hire a mixing engineer. Like, I just promise you, you'll fuck things up more, okay? This is not magic. This is not a cheat code. This is like, we're listening for very, very small details of everything in here. I don't even know if I'll use this. I'm going to turn it off for now. Okay, I'm going through my chain and I'm going, okay, I can turn that on, turn that off. I'm paying attention to what's going to add gain and what's going to take away gain. Okay, very important. All right, so this guy, what is this going on? I don't know. So I'm going to command click all this. I'm turning all these EQ boost and cuts off, okay? So this is the middle, this is the side. I'm doing a mid-side EQ on this. I am going to take this in a little bit. I don't think this record needs to be super wide. Another thing I'm going to do, it looks like this has like still some sort of curve. It's this bass shift and this presence shift. So I'm going to reset those and we're good there. And the mono maker, I might use the mono maker. I might go like, yeah, maybe around 45, 50. Okay. Now let's listen.
Logic, suspension, overdrive. All the pedals they willfully hide. You're a Catholic and that was a shame. I only have my mother to blame. Hated herself until the day her brain died. Sorry, Father.
All right, so that crash is a fucking issue. Very big issue, okay? It's like blaringly loud when the crash hits. All right, so this is a perfect example of where I would use dynamic EQ. Okay, so let's go to the dynamic EQ. I'm going to take this down just a touch because I think I'm overdoing that. This is going to be up in this crash area, okay? We're going to try and turn this down.
Sorry, Father. Sorry, Father. Sorry, Father.
So just trying to find the middle of that crash, and we're just going to turn this into a dynamic EQ. And here's what you can do. Option click the gain, or sorry, command click the gain. I don't know why all these programs are using command click. Anyway, so now I can take this down, right? So if this hits too much, then I can bring it down by this much. So the threshold is basically, you know, at 0. So if you got if it crosses the 0 point on this, it's going to tuck it down. So check it out.
Sorry, Father, I can confess. Hard under the collar when I watch her undress. She likes it. Sorry, Father, sorry, Father, sorry, Father, sorry, Father, I can confess. Sorry, Father, sorry, Father. Sorry, Father, I can confess. Sorry, Father, I can confess.
Okay, we're just kind of tucking that cymbal down just a little bit. Another thing I love about the FabFilter is you can click in the middle here, like maybe 1K or so, right? Or yeah, somewhere around here. I don't know yet. But we could turn this into a tilt EQ, which is very, very important for certain things. Like if I tilt shelf here, I can actually like tilt this. Like here, I'll show you what I mean. Let's go like here. Let's turn that on. And see this? You can do that sort of thing. Okay, so I'm going to do like kind of that vibe, right? And we'll get rid of this. And yeah, it's like very little, like half a dB.
Sorry, Father, I can confess. Hard under the collar when I watch her undress. She likes it dirty and she comes with toys. Don't take. Sorry, Father, I can confess. Sorry, Father, I can confess. Hard under the collar when I watch her undress. She likes it. Sorry, Father, I can confess. Hard under the collar when I watch her undress. She likes it dirty and she comes with toys. Don't take. Sorry, Father, I can confess. Hard under the.
See how that just kind of smooths out the drums? They're not as harsh now. So I'm just going to bypass that in and out so you could hear it.
Sorry, Father. Sorry, Father. Sorry, Father, I can confess. Hard under the collar when I watch her.
Right? Pretty dope. And I think also like with this crash, it's too much, you know what I mean? So you can also automate it down if you needed to. Or you could just ask him to bounce the crash separately. You know, anything to kind of smooth that out a little bit. I don't know. I'm not really going to like go into detail on this crash, but you know, maybe just kind of tame down that transient a little bit, especially considering it's the first thing you hear.
Sorry, Father, I can confess. Sorry, Father, I can confess. Sorry, Father. Sorry, Father, I can confess. Hard under the collar when I watch her undress. She likes it dirty and she comes with toys.
Okay, dope. So that's sounding a lot better to me. Definitely tamed it out pretty good. Okay, now let's start to put in the other stuff here. We got these guitars. And another thing I want to make sure with these guitars is that they are all cleaned up on the lows and everything. Because again, we're trying to save voltage.
Sorry, Father, I can confess. Hard under the collar when I watch her undress. She likes it dirty and she comes with toys. Don't take it out on your altar boys. Ready?
All right, so that's got a bunch of noise in it. What we're going to do here is we're just going to gate this out. A couple ways you could do this. You can do this by, simply bringing up your window, your strip silence window. I think there's probably a key command for this. Or you can use a gate. The hard thing about using a gate on something like this is that you're going to have like this release thing, right? So the gate might go and like cut out right on this part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in on the waveform like crazy. And this is another reason why I use Pro Tools more than Logic on mixing and mastering, because if I did this in Pro Tools, you'd obviously see the noise. Okay, I'm not in Pro Tools, and you can see in Logic that it's not showing the noise in this stem. And if you actually listen, there's a shit ton of noise in it. Right? I mean, that's another check mark on the board for Pro Tools. There's no way Pro Tools would miss that in the actual waveform view. I have this maxed out on the waveform view, by the way. So look at that. So it's still not showing any of the noise on the in-betweens. That's a shame. So anyway, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to simply use my tool here, delete it, and use a fade, right? And I'm just going to get rid of that noise. We got plenty of noise in this track. We do not need more. It's going to make the track smaller, okay? And we're just going to give it some fades here. And just do this manually really quick. Get pretty tight on this last one. There you go. Yeah, shit ton of noise, but no waveform view showing you that there's actually a shit ton of noise, which that pisses me off. You know, like they need to fix that. Hopefully they will in their update. All right, so now we zoom back out, and now we've cleaned up the noise on that. Now let's really listen to the synth here. Like what you'll notice is that he's not filtering out all the bullshit at the bottom. And this is like a very novice thing to not take care of. You're going to see a bunch of shit down here. And right, like that sounds great by itself. You're like, oh, why would you take out the low end of that? Because there's nothing down there. And not only that, like, you know, you hear like this harmonic thing going on, but the note is not down there. And here's the issue. You pop the bass in and the drums in, and now you're like stacking those frequencies on top of each other and just clogging things up in the low end. And you're building a lot more voltage up to hit the master bus, hit the compressors, hit the limiters, hit everything else. We don't want to harmonically distort all the low end and shit, right? Like we're mastering, but now I'm like kind of mixing as well. But so let's listen to it now. Now, did you notice when I brought that filter up that the bass started to sound much better? All of a sudden it was like that. It uncovered the bass. So now the bass is able to be much more defined. Very important. And the kick drum. Just listen. I'm going to A-B the EQ in and out. I want you to pay attention. What happens to the bass guitar? Just pay attention to the bass guitar. All right, we got to get those to work together. So another thing, the bass guitar is always, I think a great bass has like some good honk in it, right? So like usually the bass guitar is going to honk right around 400, 300 to 500 hertz. So what we want to do is maybe tuck back that area here on this synth. So I would go in like around like 450 or so and just kind of tuck this and maybe even make it dynamic. Just so when it's hitting, right? Like Just kind of pop that down, and there you go. And let that bass take over that area. Pretty cool, right? Now the next thing we want to do with this synth is maybe push it out in the sides just a little bit more. So let's let the bass be kind of in the middle, and let's let these synths kind of take up this this 1K, whatever the fundamental of the note is, the you know, that, push that out into the sides. So what we'll do is we'll like make that a side here, EQ, and we're gonna sweep it to kind of push it out. Like, gives it so much more dimension, a lot more width, and gives everything a place, right? The bass can now be much more centered, much more anchored. Very, very important. You know, we want that bass foundationally in the middle and anchored. I'm not like a super, you know, fan of some of these sounds, but, you know, I got to make them work. All right, so now let's start to, let's turn on the UAD, the vertigo here. And I want to show you what this does. Big thing in this is like a mid-side processor. So I'm processing the middle with the second order harmonic FET crusher, and then the sides with the third order Zener blend. Both tubes, all tubes, baby. All right, what do we got? I like these questions, Maple. You're killing it. I like when you guys get on live and you ask good questions. It's so fucking important. Do you have any go-to plugins for thickening up individual elements if they start to sound too thin, specifically vocals, or would you choose to parallel comp? That's going to be very source dependent, right? Because some vocals, like, you go to thicken them and you realize, like, nah, you don't want to do that, right? But I'd say one of my favorite ways to thicken vocals, and it just depends. Like, it's all mixing and doing any of this is like a yes and no, you know, sort of thing. But it all depends on the source, I think. But to thicken, definitely, I love like a Pultec, just straight up Pultec. And the way that I would do the Pultec, just to show you how to thicken, or what I would do with a Pultec to thicken. Obviously, an EQ P1A is like the way to do it. Let's go to, yeah, so the way I like to thicken is with like very musical EQs, right? Because you can thicken things with like thickening plugins and shit. They always sound like trash to me. This is a great way to do it though. Like, if you go to 30 hertz here and you boost and attenuate and you find that sweet spot, and usually the bandwidth, I like it anywhere in between 5 and really broad. And this will thicken things out really well. So, for example, like just on this synth, so you can hear it, it's such a great EQ that it's thickening in a way that doesn't sound like you're EQing in, you know, that kind of vibe. So why 30 hertz? Because when I boost and I attenuate 30 hertz, it kind of pushes it up into that 60 and 120 area and gives you that harmonic structure. So just, I'll show you, bypass in and out. One of the best EQs ever made. right? It just still hasn't been beat. That's why like everybody uses Pultex. Anyway, that's the plugin to thicken for sure. But you know, I think of thicken as a lot of different things, right? Like when you say thicken, I'm like, what do you mean by thicken? Right? Like, do you mean like the 500 area thick, or do you mean like that, or do you mean like the 200 area thick, like 250, or even 120? You know, what do you mean by thick? So that's a hard one. It's a yes and no sort of thing for me. But let's pop everything in, and let's turn this guy on, and I'll show you. Like the biggest thing here is the filter on the distortion. So the shape, the drive amount, the level. These three are the most important thing on both of these. Okay, that's what I'm gonna try and do.
What evidence can you provide? What evidence can you provide? What evidence can you provide? The church is known for its lies, logic, suspension, overdrive. All the pedals they willfully hide. You're a Catholic and that was a shame. I only have my mother to blame.
Okay, so it's just giving a lot more dimension. It works with this style of music because it's so fucked up. This needs to be gained up just a touch. So I'm gonna take this and kind of, because we're kind of losing the vocal, right, on this verse. And yeah, just make sure I don't lose the vocal.
Hated herself until the day her brain died. She was desperate, need for self-pride.
You know, sometimes when a guitar distortion sucks really bad, I just distort it more. And the reason I do that is because I want to add those harmonics into it, right? So like with this guitar, it sounds so tinny and shitty, like on the distortion. I just fucking hate it. So I'm going to go into the Sound Toys, or Soft Tube, sorry. And I'm going to use one of my favorites, this harmonic. I just love this, and I just know it really well, so that's why I use it. But I also just love the fact that it has the filtering on the distortion. And I think like a transformer could be a good spot to start and just kill the dynamics on it. And we'll drive it, and we'll do the character a little bit darker because this is already bright as fuck. And then we can mix it, we can blend it in, dry, wet. But here's the big thing I'm gonna do is take the tops off, and I'm gonna take the bottoms off here. I'm gonna take it all off, brother. All right, and then we're gonna do the filter a little bit steeper on the curve, and like let's blend this guy in. way more musical, right? Like for me, I just feel like, yeah, fuck yeah. You know, like before it's like, it's like someone's like, there's plenty of like hard shit in this, you know, like there's plenty of noise. I don't feel like this track needs more noise. Like, let's put some noise in the 2K area. Really make our ears bleed. Like, I don't think so. Also, this shit at the beginning, see ya. I don't need any of that shit. All right. I hope that's not like a cool like feedback design thing. I just fucking killed it completely. We should listen first. Check it out. Yeah, nah, I'm not gonna miss that at all. Ain't nobody gonna miss that. Like, oh man, where'd that noise go? I need more noise. Nah. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to bus all of these. Get rid of that shit. Just fade. Just kind of cleaning up stems. I hate doing this for mastering, but you know, you gotta do what you gotta do to make shit sound good. Like, I don't care what needs to be done. I just have to do it because I'm a fucking freak. And I'll lose my mind if I don't do that. Like, I just have to do things a certain way. And that's why I'm an engineer. Like, everything's got to be fixed. All right, cool. So now what I want to do is give this a little bit of a shot here. We're going to take all the instruments that are not the vocals. And we're going to... Actually, I'm just going to put the vocals at the bottom. I'm going to take all these motherfuckers. Actually, maybe I won't take the drums. Yeah, I'm not going to take the drums. So just these guys. And I'm going to bus these to their own bus. Bus 2 is what I'm going to call it. I'm going to say all instruments, whatever. And then that's going to go out stereo out. We're good, we're good. And then what I'm going to do on this is I'm just going to add, you know, everybody's favorite little track spacer on here. And I'm just going to give this a very, very small touch, like 2% or something. And I'm going to go in here and give this the attack. Go pretty fast on the attack. The song's pretty fast. And then the release pretty fast too, because the vocals are going to be fast. And then I'm going to bring that into the sidechain here. Okay. So let's send from the vocal track here to a bus. And we'll go to bus 3, right? It doesn't matter. Call this kill bus. And we will completely kill this. And then we'll go to our track spacer and we'll bring in on bus 3. There you go. And then I'm going to send 100% of that to that.
Sorry, Father, I can't confess. Harder than the collar when I watch her undress. She likes it dirty and she comes with toys. Don't take it out on your altar, boys. Ricky, on the knees, you cheat on your God. our mother to blame. Hated herself until the day her brain died. She was desperate need for self-pride. On you go. Don't know what when we die. Don't believe the lies. Don't know what when we die. Don't Sorry, Father, I must confess, I never thought that you knew what was best. All I can see is your hypocrisy, like how you poo-poo on boughs of poverty. Sorry, Father, I must confess, I never thought that you knew what was best. All I can see is your hypocrisy, like how you poo-poo on boughs of poverty. Do what was best. All I can see is your hypocrisy, like how you poo-poo on boughs of poverty. Sorry, Father, I must confess, I never thought that you knew. Like how you poo-poo on boughs of poverty. Sorry, Father, I must confess.
I was gonna add a little bit more compression to the vocal. I think it just needs it. It just needs to be held pretty tightly. Same thing, I'm just gonna use an R comp on this. Very, very basic. Let's go like 2-to-1 or something. Maybe even 1.8-to-1. I don't want it to sound like compression. I just want it to not, I don't want to lose the vocal. I really want it to stay there. Because doing this, and then he's, you know, like we got a lot of dynamics going on in the vocal. To keep this very organic, you want to go slower on the attack. You want to go faster on the release. And yeah, same thing. I'm going to do smooth. Actually, I'm going to leave this on automatic release because I think that'll be great. And let's just have it compress maybe 2 to 3 dB.
Sorry, Father, I must confess, I never thought that you knew what was best. All I can see is your hypocrisy, like how you poo-poo on boughs of poverty. Sorry, Father, I must confess, I never thought that you knew what was best. All I can see is your hypocrisy, like how you poo-poo on boughs of poverty. Sorry, Father, I must confess. Sorry, Father, I must confess, I never don't burn me. What evidence can you provide?
Okay, and the last thing I'm going to do on the vocal, just because I need to do it, it's just going to kill me if I don't do this, is just like add some sort of cut, like distortion, kind of help it pop a little bit more out, because it's like getting buried, you know? It's like I just don't, that shit's driving me crazy. So I'm going to use Spectre on this, and I'm just going to find like, I think it's probably around like 3,500, like somewhere in the mid-range. I don't know where yet.
Sorry, Father, I must confess, I never thought that you knew what was best. All I can see is your hypocrisy, like how you poo-poo on boughs of poverty. Sorry, Father, I must confess, I never thought that you knew what was best. All I can see is your hypocrisy, like how you poo-poo on boughs of poverty. Sorry, Father, I must confess, I never thought that you knew what was best. All I can see is your hypocrisy, like how you poo-poo on boughs of poverty. Burn me. is known for its lies. Logic suspense in overdrive. All the pedals they willfully hide. Grew up Catholic and that was a shame. I only have my mother to blame. Hated herself until the day her brain died. She was desperate, need for self-pride. Radium! Father, I must confess, I never thought that you knew what was best. All I can see is your hypocrisy, like how you poo-poo wine bottles of poverty. Father, I can confess, harder than the collar when I watch her undress. Likes it dirty and she comes with toys. Don't take it out on your altar boys. Ready on knees, itchy on your guard.
Yeah, I mean, shit, it's sounded a lot better. The mix is just kind of a mess. I mean, you know, I'd obviously want to mix this one. It's like mastering this is kind of like, yeah, could you put a Band-Aid on the problems that I have? You know, it's hard too, because when the mix is not there, you sometimes with mastering, you're like magnifying the issues, like the dynamic issues, the, you know, the playing, the distortion choices, all that kind of stuff. But absolutely, like, I think a huge improvement. Listening to the reference, like, because that's really important that you bounce back and forth to the reference. Let's just kind of hear. Oh, and here's another thing. Like, for this, I think it's important that we also take these out their own bus. So the all instruments bus, for example. And yeah. So let's go all instruments. Let's go to a new bus and let's call this the master augs. I usually do this. Sorry. I don't know why I didn't make this. And then just kind of copy these plugins over. I hate that Logic does that. Like when you copy something over and it opens the plugin. That's got to be like a setting or something, a preference, because that fucking drives me insane. Like, I do not want to have to close every plugin. Good fucking God. Drives me crazy. Okay. All right, so I'm just moving all of these over. And I'm going to leave the SPL Hawkeye on the master. So this is the master. So we'll just call this master. And then what I'll do is I'll move everything to bus 4 for my master augs. So for example, like this is the vocal. It needs to go to bus 4. And then this way we can A/B against the reference. And that's really important. So anything going to stereo, we need to go to bus 4. All right, and now we can take the reference out the master bus without any plugins, but then we can A/B against our master and where that's at. And we can leave the SPL Hawkeye on the stereo so we can see both of those. So let's just kind of A/B this. And I want to pay attention to, you know, all different sections of this. Maybe you'll highlight this and we'll do the reference. All right, let's hear it. Let's do some A/B comparisons. Abe.
She comes with toys. Don't take it out on your altar boys. Ready. She comes with toys. Don't take it out on your altar boys. Ready. She comes with suspension overdrive. All the pedals they willfully hide.
All right, sounding great. I think it's definitely like much more full and easier to listen to. Like the reference just fucking makes my ears bleed. Also, when you see red like on these outputs on the Oxford, who gives a shit? Those are usually, these are off of like transients, like a snare drum or something, and it just doesn't matter. Like 64-bit plugins, you see a little clipping on the output there, and who gives a shit, right? So don't worry too much when you see like a red happen on a plugin momentarily, like on a snare drum hit or something. It's just really not that big of a deal. The last thing I can do to really like pump this up, if I wanted to pump this up a little bit more, I would take this and I would do maybe a little bit of Goldfoss to clear up things just a touch before I hit the master plan. And that's just simply throwing Goldfoss or Isotope, whatever their Sculptor plugin or whatever it is. But Goldfoss I think is going to be what I would use on this, just to give it just a little more clarity, you know? I would take this and filter down out like anywhere like 35 or so, and then I filter the top because I just don't like the top at all on this record. I'm just going to try and smooth that top out. I'm going to give it a little bit of a boost, so I might go like, I usually find like 1.8 to 2.5 is somewhere I like, and then I'm going to tame at about, I don't know, 15 or so, somewhere around here, and then I'm going to recover at about 10 or so. All right, I just know what this does, so I know what I'm looking for. And then another thing, on the Oxford, I'm going to give it a little bit more of the effect to just push the high mids just a touch more, because hearing his reference, I hear that he has more high mids, but they're annoying. But that's okay. Like for this record, I want to be a little bit more annoying. I think I'm making it just a little too smooth, especially for like what this is. So I'm just going to try to rock it up a little bit more.
Catholic and that was a shame. I only have my mother to blame. Hated herself until the day her brain died. She was desperate in need for self-pride. Rapid on knees, on you go. Hypocrisy how you poo-poo on vows of poverty.
All right, so I think that's a lot better now that, like, just those little changes make it a little bit more punk rock to me, just a little bit more aggressive. So going back to the reference here, especially at the end, let's go to like what here, and listen here, and we'll bounce back and forth.
Sorry, Father, I'm a mess. I never thought that you knew what was best. All I can see is your hypocrisy, like how you poo-poo on vows of that you knew what was best. All I can see is your hypocrisy.
All right, now I'm much happier with my master. You know, like I'm like, yeah, that's much better. All right, cool. It's like at first I'm like, is it that much better? I don't know. I think it could be better. So yeah, now I'm way happier with this. This will translate so much better on streaming services. Much more full in the mid-range, thicker, not as aggressive for the ears, but still has aggression to it. Vocal much more clear. We don't lose the vocal. Much more punchy, much fatter. Vocals not like got all that weird boxy weird mud in there. So yeah, I think we've made a big improvement. Do you guys have any last questions or anything? Here to just kind of answer some questions for you guys if you have any, because obviously like we just went through everything. And honestly, I would take an ear break about now on a song like this because it's fucking intense, like especially in like the 1K to 5K area is just like gets your ears like really fatigued. So you got to be careful with that. Oh, here we go. When you like to automate at the start of a mix, before processing or after or both. Yeah, so I would say after usually. So I'd process everything. I'd get the mix really like tight. The reason I don't like to automate before like processing, before like compression and all that, is because when you're like really mixing, you're getting the compression, the EQ, the pocket of everything, you're getting it all placed in. That's the record, right? Like, so you might have a section where it's like, that's it right there. It's solid. But then you go to the next section, like the verse or something, and you're like, oh, that's not right. You don't want to go like automating and automating and automating. That's so dumb. What a waste of time, right? So what you do is you get that section, that chorus sounding really fucking good, and you're like, great, that doesn't need any automation. But then the vocals on the verse and the guitar on the verse and stuff might need some automation. Okay, easy to do after you got your mix solidified. Now you can just like bump up some volume, turn off an EQ, you can shoot a delay throw, you can do some automation. But yeah, if you're automating before mixing, you're fucking yourself. It wouldn't even make sense. Yeah, like to me, like you see what I'm doing, I'm like clip gaining, right? These vocals are like going down too far and you could see the waveform got really small. Got to bring them back up. I'd consider that automation in a sense, It'd be like volume automation. But that's my answer. I definitely, like, remember, I'm not mixing this record. I'm stem mastering it, which is really like, hey, could you like mix my record for a more affordable rate? Like, yeah, I can do, I could, it's like in between mixing and mastering to me. Yo, what's good, man? Good to see you. Chile in the house. It blended together with that guitar distortion part, but a little re-recording on the vocals would make a big difference. Yeah, I mean, that's not at all where we're at with this record. You know, the artist comes to you, they're like, this is how I like it, this is my song, can you master it? They're like, we're at the final stage, bro. Like, I'm not producing this. I didn't record any of this. I didn't touch this record besides this, what I've done on it, on this live. So, yeah. Let the artist know, Dan. You guys have any other questions before I get out of here? Yeah, man, we got it. We got it somewhere I think really good. Houston, did the Wi-Fi go out? I don't know. Yeah, way better, way better. I agree. Absolutely. Logic Pro for the win, baby. All right. No more questions. I'll get out of here. Appreciate you guys stopping by. If you like this and you got something out of it, definitely share it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Show some love. Drop a comment, whatever. And if you need mixing and mastering, you know where to find me. I'll leave a link to it in the description here. All right. Till next time, you guys keep killing it. Keep going after it. Peace.